Welcome to Season 5 of the SARE Ladies podcast. This is where Asian American Pacific Islander women carve out their own space in real estate and shake up the status quo. Join your hosts, Anita and Ashley as they dive deep into bold strategies, personal growth, and everything it takes to own it. From building wealth to boosting confidence. Let's jump in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Season 5 of the SARE Ladies podcast. I'm your host, Anita Wong, a real estate investor, syndicator, and co-founder of Give Rise Capital.
And I'm Ashley commercial mortgage lender, investor, recovering tech employee, and now your new co-host for this season.
And if you don't know, Ashley and I are putting on a really special project that is coming out on September 12th of 2025. We're putting on our first conference, which we're calling the Anti-Conference Conference. A little bit of this anti-real estate culture kind of conference that we, feel like we need to rewrite. So we're doing a conference our way. It's going to be at this really amazing venue where there's literally floor to ceiling LED panels, and it's just going to be really fun. And one of our amazing speakers, amongst many, is going to be Jane Ng, who's going to be joining us at the conference. Ashley, have anything to add about the conference?
So it's going to be in Las Vegas, and it's a one-day event. And so it won't be a long weekend, but it will just be a really, high energy, high knowledge, I guess, day where we will be talking about commercial real estate, residential real estate, and then also the last piece is the business operations, which people forget about. And so that's your tax, your law, the systems behind your business that really drive your business forward.
Yeah, and it's coming up real soon. So we have the link in our show notes, so just check it out real quick. And we're excited to introduce Jane.
Yeah, so Jane and I have known each other for a few years now. I think we met through investing circles, and I do remember Jane had invited me to come to her house like a few years ago, and she threw a barbecue. And I don't know if you remember this, Jane. This is like a few years ago, and so we talked about just like growing our real estate portfolio, and then also like sharing our journey. And we were like, we should do content, like we should make more content. And I feel like you really like stuck to that. And so I really like seeing your content, and you've done such great things that I use personally that we'll talk about later. But if you don't know who Jane is, she is also a recovering corporate America employee turned entrepreneur. And so she's now an Airbnb super host and founder of the Investing Mom Academy. So she does short-term rentals, and she's teaching other people how to do that. And we'll kind of talk a little bit more about her story of how she got into that, and then share some tips on how you can help grow your Airbnb business as well.
Yeah, I'm super excited because I think Jane is actually one of my favorite accounts to plug in for STRs. It's so personal, so real. We actively take tips for our own personal portfolios, and I think that there's nothing better than that. Truly, it's like if we're taking the tips from Jane, we have to share it with our community. Okay, so Jane, welcome. So excited to have you.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Yes. So tell us about you and what you've been working on lately.
Yeah, so my name is Jane. I live in the Bay Area with my husband and our 3 kids. They are 13, 11, and 6, girl, boy. I have been in real estate for the last 5 years, started with out-of-state long-term rentals, and then pivoted pretty quickly to short-term rentals in 2021. And as I was talking about and just sharing what we were doing with our own short-term rental portfolio, people started asking if I can co-host. And so then we started a co-hosting business. And then I had a lot of people ask if I had a course or if I can mentor them or coach them on how they can do the same. And so now we have the Investing Mom Academy. So lately, I've been really focusing on the academy and building a community of like-minded parents, but it's primarily moms. We do have a few dads, and we also have non-parents as well, but it's really a comfortable, safe space for parents to come and learn everything about short-term rentals, whether you want to co-host, buy, arbitrage, whether you have 10 properties or you don't know anything about this space. It's been a really nice community where everyone's just sharing a lot of knowledge. And it's just one of those feelings where the more you give, the more you get back. And so it's been a really nice community to build.
Awesome. So I'm hearing that it's kind of open for everyone, mainly, but it is generally for parents. Is it, what kind of markets do your students invest in?
So it's kind of all over. We have a lot of people from the Bay Area, and they invest. The people who invest in short-term rental markets, a lot of them do the more vacation markets, like the Smokies, Poconos, Joshua Tree. We do have some that do a mixture of MTR and STR, but I have one student from Africa. And she found me through Insta. I don't know how she found the Instagram account, but she is in a town where I feel like in America, we were maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Like, not a lot of people know how to host. Nobody takes professional photography. I mean, it's really the basic. And so she really wants to be the go-to person in her market when it comes to other owners looking for a co-host, but also where she can create her own community. And so it's been so nice to help her and teach her, but also to just see that energy and that excitement because she knows the opportunity, right? Because we're living it, right? We're living 10, 15 years ahead of her. And she's like, wow, that's the opportunity. And I can gain all this knowledge from someone who's 10 or 15 years ahead of me. And I can implement it now, where people here in Africa, they have no idea what they're doing. No one believes in paying for a professional photographer. Nobody knows about pricing. Nobody knows any of this stuff. And so she's really in an amazing spot to just skyrocket her career.
That's awesome. Well, if you want to learn more about the Investing Mom Academy, it'll be in our show notes. But I think first, let's talk about your story and how that tipped you into your career.
Yeah, so I was working in corporate America. I was actually very happy climbing the corporate ladder. I know a lot of people who get into real estate want to escape the W-2. For me, that wasn't the case. But about 10 years ago, when my oldest daughter, Ashley, was 3, she was diagnosed with leukemia. And I know leukemia and cancer in and of itself is horrible, but the type that she had was really aggressive and pretty rare. And so when you have a child with cancer, the oncologist gives you like a list of, okay, these are the most common side effects from chemo. These are more rare. And these are really like the 0.1%. And she had all the 0.1% plus things that are not even on the list. Like they're not even in the medical textbooks. And so all the complications that she had resulted in her now being pretty disabled. She will never be like an independent adult. My husband and I will have to care for her indefinitely. But during treatment, it was a pretty easy decision for me to leave corporate America, obviously, right? Your daughter's fighting for her, your 3-year-old is fighting for her life. Like, what kind of a mother is going to continue working? And so I was happy to quit. But in the back of my mind, I always thought I'd go back just because I have this entrepreneurial itch, right? I've always wanted to do something. And whether it's working for a startup or starting my own business or whatever it is, I always thought I would go back and do something. But when we realized all the complications she had, I knew there was no way I could have a boss. Right? Because I just can't, like, for example, this week, she started school on Monday. Every single day she had a doctor's appointment. And some of them were at UCSF in San Francisco, which is, a round trip 2.5 hour drive plus the doctor's appointments. And no matter what kind of job I had, if I was reporting to someone, I have to request for a couple hours off every single day. And that's just not sustainable for my daughter. And so I knew that if I wanted to go back, I had to be my own boss. And, as much as this situation sucks where your child has cancer, it was the reason we found real estate. And so late 2019, the last 2 months of 2019, my daughter and I were in New Orleans for medical treatment. It was just me and her. The rest of the family stayed back home. And we didn't know anybody. We had no friends there, no family. And because she was so tired from her treatments, in between, when I was just driving around, she would fall asleep. And instead of continuing to drive when she was napping, I would just park on a sidewalk and read a book, or, scroll on my phone and just wait for her to wake up. And one day I parked in front of a for sale sign, and I just looked it up on Zillow, and it was a pretty decent 3-bedroom, 2-bath house for $200,000. And you ladies know we're from the Bay Area. You cannot buy anything for 200,000. I mean, you can't even buy a fixer upper for $1 million, right? It's so expensive. And so for the first time, I felt like real estate investing was achievable for us. Like, we can afford a down payment for $200,000. And so I went down the rabbit hole of like bigger pockets, out of state long-term rental investing. Fast forward 2 months, we bought our first out of state long-term rental for $50,000. And that kind of started our entire journey into, our current portfolio.
Wow, that's incredible. That's so serendipitous. It was like
Yeah.
a calling. It was like the universe and God is really calling you to, just like this is the direction. Literally just parked right in front of it. So I think in your bio, you talk about your motivations on starting the Investing Mom Academy and about helping other people build wealth on your own terms. And so obviously you're building wealth now in order to take care of your family, and you're helping other people too. And so what does that mean to you about building wealth on your own terms?
Yeah, I think as moms, whether you work full time or you stay at home or you work part time, no matter how many kids you have, regardless of their age, I feel like moms always feel like there's not enough time in the day, right? To do all the things you have to do for your family, and then the things that you want to do, right? There's no time for the I want this or I need this to like refill my cup. And so when I think about moms building wealth on our own terms, it really means building wealth around your schedule and your family, and the ability to have even a couple hours of extra freedom a week. I think that can be huge. And you can use that in different ways. You can use the couple extra hours to chaperone your kindergartner's field trip. You can use it to meet a friend for lunch. You can use it to go to the gym uninterrupted. You can get a midweek massage, whatever you need to do to be a better mom. Because I think, Anita, you can agree with me, when the few times you have to take care of yourself, right? If your cup is full, you are a better mom and you're a better wife and you're just a better person. Versus if you don't have any time for yourself, then you're just always running empty and you feel drained. You're super agitated. My kids will say, like, Mom, how come you're not smiling today? I'm like, what? I'm not smiling. They're like, no, you're not smiling. So I've learned that the times where I am able to do something for myself. And so what I've been doing is, as soon as I drop them off at school, I've been going for morning hikes, and it's just 40 minutes, but that amount of time, it makes or breaks my day, right? Or waking up a little bit early to do quiet time, like that makes or breaks my day as well. But that's time just for me. I don't want to hike with anybody else. I don't want the quiet time to be with anyone else. It's just for me. And so that's what building wealth looks like for me on my own terms. It's having time to be a better person, a better mom, a better wife, so that you can be there for your family.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a mom yet, but I do think that these are like really good lessons to prepare me to be a mom. But then also, I think, you talk about your wealth on your own terms. And, I'm hearing that it's not money, right? The money is the vehicle that buys you time so that you can have time to yourself, time to your family, and all that stuff. And I think that's like the most invaluable piece is time, because you can never get it back. So I love that. And I think those are just good lessons to share with people, because I think people forget, like, yes, money is important, but it's not the most important thing. I think it's time. So
Right.
so I do want to kind of transition to more of the, I guess, tactical things, because I have lots of questions as an Airbnb owner myself. And so the first area that I want to talk about is like Airbnb fatigue. And so, I think a lot of investors got into the Airbnb space for various reasons. And one of the reasons being, the tax benefits from it, especially if you're a W-2 employee, you can take advantage of the bonus depreciation and cost segregation, which essentially allows you to take losses against your W-2 income. And so, when I did it myself, I was like, oh, cool. Like I can like offset my W-2 income. But with that came a responsibility of managing a property more than a long-term rental owner, where now I'm answering questions about, is there a hair dryer available? How much parking is available for this property because I'm hosting family or whatnot. And so I transitioned from being a real estate property owner to hospitality. And so, I guess the first question is, why do you think, or, do you see Airbnb fatigue maybe from the folks that you speak with in your academy? And like, what are the biggest mistakes that owners do maybe to bring on the fatigue for themselves?
Yeah, I think there is some level of Airbnb fatigue. And I think it's a mixture of a lot of things. So, actually, when you and I first started investing in short term rentals, probably 2021, right? So,
Mhm.
2021 and 2022 were the golden years for everybody. You could take a picture of your RV with your cell phone and you can make a couple $100s a night. Like, it was so easy to make money. And I think a lot of real estate investors got in at that time because they heard it was easy money and they continued to treat it like an easy business,
Mhm.
right? And 2021, if you remember, was also the time when the world started slowly opening up after COVID, right? The world was shut down for so long, and there was so much pent up travel demand. And for, I would say, like the first year or two, as the world was slowly opening up and people were starting to travel, most families with kids, or a lot of even like non-families, they weren't really comfortable staying in a hotel and sharing an elevator with someone they don't know, sharing enclosed hallways, like an enclosed building, right? They weren't comfortable staying in a hotel. And so the demand for Airbnbs skyrocketed, right? Like they're just, what I think at one of those years, Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, said, in order to fill this demand, they need over 1 million listings in the coming year. Now it's probably the opposite problem, right? Because I think they eventually got to the 1 million listings, but that's why in 2021 and 2022 people did so well. And so people who kind of just put up a property on Airbnb more as a hobby and not really studying the industry and really looking into why it's doing so well, they were really shocked when people started going back to hotels, right? And then the demand for travel kind of averaged out, right? It was what it was before the pandemic, which is a normal year. But 2021 and 2022 were just the pent up demand plus people not being comfortable staying in hotels meant everyone who owned an Airbnb made so much money. And so that the supply and demand in this space has now gone back to what's normal. A lot of people are like, it's gone down, it's doing so poorly, but no, actually it's gone back to what it was before the pandemic and what it should be. And so what that means is if you want to continue to be in the space and compete in this space, you really have to treat it like a business. And it doesn't mean, Ashley, like you were saying, it doesn't mean you have to respond to all the, is there a hair dryer? How many cars can I park? You don't have to respond to all of that. But if you want to scale this business, then you have to figure out what systems you're going to put in place and what vendors are out there to help you spend less time doing it. So there's actually a company that I'm talking to right after we record this podcast. It's called Host Buddy AI. And Ashley, it would be actually perfect for you because if you don't have like a massive team of 5 VAs to answer all these questions for you, then what they do is you upload all the information about your property to this company, and then they just use AI to answer those questions. So you can have a property info sheet that says, yes, we have a hair dryer, and you can park up to 4 cars in the driveway, and then there's room for another 2 cars street parking, or whatever it is, like common questions. And they will include the last 6 months of conversations you've had with guests on the platform. And because you might forget some of the information you want to upload, and they'll use all of that information to respond to guests. And you can even set a cadence, like I want them to respond within 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 10 minutes in case you want to insert yourself and you don't want the AI tool to respond. But either way, there are always these new vendors and companies coming on board to support people in this business. But if managing short-term rentals is not your bread and butter, or you're not willing to learn the new things, then yes, you're going to be stuck with doing the hard work and possibly, year over year, making a lot less money, because the other operators who are taking it very seriously are going to continue to grow. And then those who aren't may not be growing at the same rate.
That is, I just wrote down Host Buddy IO, is it?
It's AI. Host Buddy AI.
Okay. And just a question on that. So does that integrate with like a PMS, like a software system, or is it its own standalone system?
So they do integrate with your PMS, but you can also message through their platform. Okay. But the easiest way is to integrate with your PMS, which I know you're using one, because they'll input all that. They'll get all that information, right? Because in your PMS, you've already put this is 4-bedroom, 3-bath, can sleep up to 10, all of that information. They'll import that so you don't have to redo it. So they really try to make it as easy as possible to onboard you and then to take over messaging. And I think whether it's short-term rentals or any other aspect of real estate or really any business, if you're not utilizing some form of AI, you're being left behind, right? And it doesn't mean AI should run your entire business, but there are pockets of your business where it makes sense, not only to save you time, but it's much more cost effective, right? Than having an entire team. And I have 3 VAs. They're great, but they're human. So they make mistakes, right? And AI is not supposed to make mistakes. And if there is a question they don't know how to answer, they will message the guest saying, I will get right back to you while I look this up. Or, you can figure out what you want them to say, and then they'll ping you. They'll text you or email you on this. They'll say, Ashley, they asked about, can they throw a party at this house? Like, I don't know how to respond. And then whatever your response is to that now goes in their memory bank. And then they can use that to respond to future questions.
That is very interesting, because I have a virtual assistant too, who helps manage a lot of my properties. And so do you think that it will start replacing the virtual assistants, or is there still kind of 2 separate roles that your VAs and the AI would have?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I do think some of the VA responsibilities that are more entry level are going to be replaced by AI. And I've talked to my team about it, and I haven't let anyone go because of it, because I'm trying to find other things that they can do to help me and other ways they can grow the business. So I think there is, if you think about your business, there'll be a shift in terms of, okay, what can I use AI for? That's, kind of the more basic things that I don't need a human person to do. And then what are the new things that my VA can do? And do they have the right skill set to do that? And if that means, unfortunately, you have to replace them, then that's, just a business decision. But a lot of what my team does is still outside of guest communications, right? So a lot of the vendor communication, I think it's still hard for AI to do, or like researching. But I mean, ChatGPT and some of these other sources can help with that. So they certainly utilize AI when they're doing their own work. But I do think some of it is eventually going to be replaced by AI.
Okay.
Hey everyone, it's Anita here. If you ever felt like traditional real estate conferences leave you overwhelmed with sales pitches and underwhelmed with real connections, then you need to be at the Anti Conference this September in Las Vegas. We built this experience to flip the script. No panels for panel's sake, no endless lectures, just curated connections, real talk with investors across multifamily, STR, fix and flips, and more. The kind of networking that actually leads to deals. So on September 12th, join us for the Anti-Conference. So whether you're new to investing or scaling your portfolio, this is the right room with the right people. Grab your ticket now Spaces are limited, and come find your next partner, your next deal, or even maybe your next big idea at the Anti-conference.
So I mentioned hospitality earlier, and I know that you have a formal background in hospitality. And so how does that, how does your formal experience or formal exposure to hospitality apply to what you do now? And, how does that set you apart from maybe amateur Airbnb hosts?
Yeah, it's a good question because not every short-term rental operator sees this as a hospitality business. And so I think it's crucial. I mean, you don't have to have a background in hospitality to be good at it, right? But for me, it was literally the first thing I thought when we decided to get into short-term rentals. In my mind, I was going to operate a hotel. Like I will now be the general manager of this I'm selling one room, right? Like in a hotel, there's multiple rooms, but I'm in charge of this one room hotel. And as a general manager, I know you have to understand operations, you have to understand housekeeping, you understand sales and marketing, you have to understand like maintenance, right? There's all these different departments within a hotel. And so I knew, okay, I need a handyman. I need like who's on my maintenance team, right? Handyman, plumber, electrician. So I had all those people, all those vendors ready. I have my housekeeping staff. I have, I'm supposed to do sales and marketing, whether it's just through Airbnb or having my own direct website, and then understand pricing. So hotels have an entire revenue management team. And so that was one of the first things that I implemented just because I knew on the hotel side, it's something that it is essential to their ROI. But I think a lot of people don't understand hospitality to the full extent. And so I went to grad school at Cornell for hospitality management. So it's arguably the best school that there is, or the best program that there is. Hospitality to me is surprising and delighting the guest at every chance you get. It's from beginning to end. So some people think it's just providing a bottle of wine or providing a snack basket or putting chocolates on the pillow. That is not hospitality. I mean, it's part of it, right? Because it's a nice gesture, but that's not where it stops or ends. It starts the moment they see your listing on Airbnb and it ends until they've written you a 5-star review. And that entire process can take months, right? If they book 2 or 3 months out, you're constantly providing a level of service that's at the highest level of hospitality with every point of communication, when you communicate, how you communicate, all of that until when they stay, after they check out, and until you get that 5-star review. It's not over, right? It's not only when they stay, it's this entire process. And so I break it down into, okay, obviously that first photo is super important, right? So how are you going to position that? There's the whole aspect of guest communications. And Ashley, as you know, sometimes you'll get a really nasty guest, right? You get a nasty guest, they're complaining about them. Maybe they've been making up stories and they're just really, really difficult to deal with. Thankfully, now we have ChatGPT you can write a super angry message into ChatGPT, a response, and you can say, please rewrite this in the most hospitable way possible for my Airbnb guests who I'm not happy with right now. And so thankfully now we have ChatGPT. But prior to that, I literally had to step away from my computer or my phone. And I needed a couple hours to cool down before I even considered responding back, because I knew like just a slight negative tone or a slight change in tone, you're guaranteed like less than a 5-star review, right? Like these guests they know that their reviews are powerful. And so it's so important to maintain that level of hospitality throughout. So that's, for me, it's surprising and delighting to guests at like every touch point from the moment they see your photo until you get that 5-star review.
Yeah, I started learning about this. I think I actually, if you've seen the bear, the bear with the restaurateur. Anyway, there's this scene where they brought like a Chicago hot dog because they heard some guest at the table wanted a Chicago hot dog and they've never had one before, and that was actually taken by that was actually a real story from Unreasonable Hospitality, Will Guidara.
I love that book. It's my favorite book. Yeah.
I was like, I can
Great
see
book.
those concepts. And I love that just because it's, like you're thinking about all these different angles on how to be so generous outside your body, that it's, that really separates the professionals from the amateurs. But on the other spectrum, I can totally see how this would stress the living crap out of me. Like I would just be, I would just, I would be just so, I'm not sure that I have the patience to be, so graceful and patient and still thinking about wanting to surprise someone when they've just been a total crab at me for the entire time. Yeah, how do you deal with that?
That's why I have a team who's also very gracious. Because, sometimes I'm not feeling very gracious because I'm human. And um, it's, I think if you have the mindset of, this is the service industry, right? I mean, yes, it's not a restaurant, it's not a spa, but if you have the mindset that you are in the service industry, then you have to think about like serving your guests, right? And finding ways to surprise and delight. And I think a lot of times investors, right? Because a lot of us short-term rental operators are also investors. We think about the numbers, right? Oh, is it worth the $50 to send this, or is it worth $100 to surprise and delight? Yes. If they're asking for something in the thousands, okay, maybe that's something you need to think about. But is it worth $100 to have a out of this world raving 5-star review? It's not just a 5-star review, but imagine what they're going to say, right, about you if you really went out of your way. So I'll give an example. One of the properties that we co-host, there was an older woman, I think she was a grandma, who was booking the stay for a week. And she was checking out like December 23rd, so before Christmas. And she wanted a real Christmas tree. She said, I'm coming with my granddaughter and she's 4 years old. And I don't want to ruin her Christmas by not having a real Christmas tree. She always has a real Christmas tree. And I was like, what is it going to cost to get I don't know where to get a real Christmas tree in this town that I've never lived in. And I have to convince the owners that it's worth spending the money, because if it's my property, it's a separate issue. But now it's the owners. And, we have to get it removed and disposed of by a certain time because then it's going to smell. And then there's going to be like a big mess for the cleaners to clean up. So I'm thinking of the cost. And when she first asked me, she was also a little bit pushy when she asked. She's like, I need a Christmas tree. Not, can you get us a Christmas tree? She's like, I need a Christmas tree. And so if you're a guest listening to this and you want something, please ask nicely because you're more likely to get it, and maybe even more. If she just said please or can I would have had maybe a nice response. Long story short, we went out of our way. We got the real Christmas tree. I paid my cleaners like $20 to decorate it really nicely. And the real Christmas tree wasn't that expensive. We couldn't get a massive one. We also didn't get the smallest one. We just got like a mid-sized Christmas tree. We did the bells and whistles. And she sent us a photo of her granddaughter opening presents under the Christmas tree. And she's like, this is amazing. And the review that we got was like beyond what we could have imagined. It wasn't just, Jane went out of her way for us. It was she described the experience of her 4-year-old granddaughter opening presents under this Christmas tree when it wasn't even her house. And so those are things where, yeah, it's kind of, the guest was a little annoying, right? And like, I didn't really want to do it for her because she didn't ask nicely, but this is also a business. And now I'm responsible for getting 5-star reviews for my owners, right? It's not even my own property. And I had to convince them like, hey, can you spend like an extra $100 and $150 to do this? And they're like, they don't have kids, but they're like, yeah, if you think it's the right call, then we'll pay for it. And so we did it. I sent them the review and they're like, good call. This was worth $150. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. You literally made a 4-year-old's Christmas.
Yes, we did. And so that's what it's about, right? It's like that. It's surprising and delighting in that way. And honestly, for $150, like I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of the thing I always feel pushback about, especially with investors, right? We're always thinking about the bottom line, or what this time and effort is really going to take us. And I'll even add on top of that, because I feel like most people that in our community that jump out of the Airbnb space is because it's most people that go into Airbnb is like they have a house that they're not using, but it's their own house. It's their primary house, or they've moved in. It's like a parent's house. There's an emotional connection to that place. And then when people come, they live in it. They party in it. They don't treat it like their home. That's when the emotional part just comes back. And so sometimes I say, well, if you're going to do this as an investment, like, you should get a house, get an investment and treat it like an investment. Like, these things that you're buying are going to break. Don't give your grandma's china to Joe Schmo to, for the weekend if you're not willing to part with it. Do you have anything to say about that to people that are, just wanting to make a little bit of income on their houses or pay their mortgages?
Yeah, that's I think, especially in the Bay Area, it's common. And just, we have the Super Bowl coming to town, right? Early 2026. So I feel like at least for that weekend, there might be quite a few people who are wanting to Airbnb their place to maybe make, a couple $1,000s in a few nights. But if this is something you do on a regular basis where, it is a second home, or, you live in one place half the year and then another place half the year, I would recommend storing all of your personal belongings or whatever is really important to you, either in the storage unit or the owner's closet. Like, Anita, like you said, if you're not ready to part with it, it should not be available for the guests. And if it is available and they break it, you shouldn't be upset because you left it out there, right? So if you have a souvenir from a trip to Brazil, don't leave it out there. Like, put it away. Because things will break. And that's one thing where you have to take the emotion out of it, because you have to run it like a business. Something will break and you have to replace it. And you just have to think of it as like, this is an expense of running the business. And there are, if you think about, well, I don't want to do it because I heard things break all the time and I don't want to have to pay for all these things that break. There are damage insurance companies that are pretty inexpensive where they'll pay for the damages, right? So then again, this is another mindset of, if you're going to run a short-term rental, you have to run it like a business, because there are all these different companies and different ways you can get these damages paid for. So you are not paying out of pocket. And you can even ask Airbnb or the guest to pay for it if it's significant damage.
Cool. Yeah, well, good tips on just putting away your valuables, because I'm a 10-minute walk from the stadium. So I'm thinking about renting
Yes,
out
you should.
my house for the Super Bowl. But okay, so I want to just move to just I'm also an Airbnb host, and I do actively use your tips on your Instagram to help, with my bookings and things like that. And I do want to mention a couple of them, but I would love to have you share maybe like your top ones that have really boosted your business. And so one of them that I use is the parent-child strategy. And so that is pretty much making 2 listings out of 1 property. And so I use that at my Joshua Tree property because it's a 4-bedroom and my weekdays were pretty empty. And so I turned it into a 2-bedroom as well, or 2-bedroom option. So that, if there is a smaller group or a couple that wanted to get away, they can still rent my property. And so I thought that was a huge benefit, and a really creative strategy. So I wanted to just, if you have any comments on that, feel free to share, but I would love to kind of hear like what are some other impactful things that you've implemented that have really boosted maybe your bookings or the customer service or hospitality side.
Yeah, the parent-child strategy is huge. And as you mentioned, it's turning 1 listing into 2, and it may not work in all situations, right? The property kind of has to have a certain layout, and we do it for 2 of our properties that we co-host, because the layout is perfect, and both of them, the 2 separate units, always rent out better than the entire house in and of itself. And so, if possible, I think it's an easy way to make more money. The other thing that I do pretty regularly is this pricing hack. And what I do is, if I'm looking at my calendar, this is just possible on Airbnb. So I don't believe Vrbo has it. It's not something you can do on Price Labs. But on Airbnb, Airbnb will reward you for providing these custom promotions. So they call them custom promotions. So you would go into your listing calendar and then you'd select the dates that you want to discount. And basically, if you give a minimum of a 20% discount on those dates, Airbnb gives you these 4 like free marketing tools, I guess. And so 3 of them I don't think are as valuable as the 4. They're like, on your listing, they'll like cross out the old price and put a new price. I'm like, that's fine. But the biggest benefit is they include you in email promotions. So you're basically getting free email marketing from Airbnb to their audience just by offering 20% discount. Now, they're not going to highlight you, just your property. What I believe they do, because this has happened to me on as a guest looking for a property. So let's say I'm going to Tahoe and I'm, there's a couple times I'm on Airbnb searching Tahoe and the dates, but I haven't booked yet. Then Airbnb will start emailing me, hey, Jane, are you still interested in Tahoe for these dates? And they'll highlight some properties, right? So if you're offering that 20% discount on those dates, your property gets highlighted to someone who's already been searching those dates but hasn't booked yet. So the chances of you getting booked are much higher because the email is not being sent to cold leads. It's being sent to warm, if not hot leads, right? People that are already interested. I don't do that all the time, but if I'm looking at my calendar, I'm like, okay, I have all the weekends booked and Sunday through Thursday is not booked, then I'll do it for that. Or if I'm trying to book a weekend and I have a 3-night weekend minimum, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, Saturday, then I'll discount either just Friday or just Sunday. So even if I'm giving a 20% discount on a weekend, which everyone's like, why would you do that? I'm like, hey, I'm getting full price on 2 out of the 3 days still. And I'm getting a 3-night booking versus a 2-night booking for the weekend. So it's still more than worth doing that for me and the way I've priced the properties. And so that's something that I started doing just during slow season, where I'm not discounting everything, but I'll be a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes I'll do 25% instead of 20%. But in the summer, I found it effective for midweek. And also, if you're requiring that 3-night weekend, then including like a Sunday or Friday night, then they'll end up booking the entire 3 nights.
So, quick question about that. So I use Price Labs also. So do you disconnect Price Labs or
No, you would keep Price Labs. So Price Labs will continue making their daily updates and that'll continue to push to Airbnb. But the 20% discount will apply to like the updated pricing from Price Labs, but it'll just be visible for like the Airbnb consumers. It won't be on your direct booking website or on Vrbo or booking.com or whatever other sites you're on. So Price Labs will continue making their updates, and then that 20% will continue to update based on the new Price Labs price that's being pushed out.
Okay, gotcha. I have tons more questions, but I know we're out of time. So, I do appreciate your time today, Jane, and I know you're going to be joining us for the anti-conference, which I will be asking you way more questions there. And so, if you want to also learn more from Jane, then you can come to the anti-conference as well. But I appreciate the time today. I think you had some really good points to share, especially about creating wealth on your own terms and taking what you do in as an Airbnb superhost seriously. It's not a hobby, it's a business, and so you have to treat it like a business. And then I also like the kind of the surprise and delight factor that you've provided, that makes you stand out from other Airbnb hosts, because like you said, reviews do matter and that can make or break your business on the Airbnb side. So lots of really good nuggets today. I appreciate the time. And Anita, do you have any other words to share?
No, I'm just so excited for this conference because I have so many more questions after that too. Jane is going to be putting together essentially a workshop at this conference. It is worth your time. Even if you have one Airbnb or none, just like it would be worth your time just to come to her breakout workshop. So I'm excited to see you there. Jane, if our listeners want to find you, how can they do that?
The best way to find me is on Instagram at The Investing Mom. You can follow, send a DM, and we'll be in touch.
Cool.
All right. Well, if this episode resonates, share with your friends and hit follow. Until next time, my ladies. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the SARE Ladies Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to follow, share, and leave us a review. It helps more women in real estate find this community. And don't forget to connect with us at sareladies.com for more resources, stories, and support on your investing journey. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep breaking barriers.